Have you ever experienced handling that worsens throughout a heat or a main? This condition has a couple of causes. I'm Rob with DFC Suspension, and today we're gonna break out a topic from a book I wrote named Flat Track Tuning, Real World Suspension and Chassis Setup, available on Amazon, Spotify, and Kindle now. Before we begin, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and if you wanna be the first to know when new content posts, hit the bell and get notified when we drop new content. Today we're going to talk symptoms and diagnostics. Specifically, we're going to address suspension and chassis attitude that gets worse over multiple laps. A little disclaimer, suspension and rider feel are dynamic and subjective by nature. What may feel like a well-performing setup for one rider or racer may feel terrible for another rider or racer. If you're looking for a black and white answer that provides one exact fix for a problem, you're not going to find it here. What you will find, however, is a real approach from an active tuner's perspective based on real problems and fixes. The main fault I've found that makes suspension and chassis attitude get worse over laps is an event called packing. What is packing? This is a crude explanation, but it'll drive the point home. Think of it like this. Theoretically, the suspension compresses 3 inches. Then it unloads. Rebound is closed off too much, so it can't return or rebound the same 3 inches before the next compression event. Let's say now that it only returns 2.5 inches before the next compression event starts. We lost 1/2 inch of compression travel. And when the suspension goes back into extension or rebound, we only extend 2 inches now. And so this characteristic continues until the suspension, in essence, hydraulics. The bike rides lower in the stroke, which destroys the initial chassis geometry we set in the pits, which translates to harsh feel, loss of grip, and an overall poorly performing bike. The 2 things I found in flat track that most often cause packing are rebound adjustment being too slow or closed off, and thermal fade. Or to put it simply, your suspension overheating. Yes, it is a real thing. Let's address the easiest fix first. Rebound adjustment being too slow. We'll start with familiarizing ourselves with the rebound clickers first. The most common place you're gonna find the rebound clickers is on the lower shock clevis on a shock. And for closed cartridge forks, you're gonna find it on the bottom of the fork lug. For open cartridge forks, you're gonna find it on the top of the fork cap. We turn the adjusters clockwise to close off bleed and in turn increase the damping. This is commonly referred to as slowing the rebound. Turning anti-clockwise creates the opposite effect. It lessens damping by opening the bleed and is commonly referred to as speeding up the rebound. If it helps you understand better, you can replace the word bleed with the word bypass. You will still be talking about the same system in the proper manner. Just don't confuse this with bypass shocks. That's a different thing entirely. The adjuster is a needle that meters fluid flow around the piston and the valving. The more closed off or clockwise we turn the adjuster, the more fluid is forced through the piston and the valving, which in turn creates more damping. The more open or anti-clockwise we turn the adjuster, the more fluid goes freely through the bleed, and the less control we have over the release of the spring stored energy on the fork or shock extension. That being said, in this use case, and especially in traditional old school flat track builds, if we close off the rebound too much, then the suspension cannot return to the ground fast enough after a compression cycle. And compounded, this creates packing. To combat packing in this case, we can simply open the bleed port by adjusting the clicker anti-clockwise. This helps balance fluid pressure on either side of the valving piston so it can move efficiently. Our goal would be to open the rebound bleed port enough to resolve packing, but not so far that the rear becomes twitchy, unpredictable, or rebounds hard enough to create buck or high stroke wallow. Keep in mind that other causes can create packing, but they tend to be on extreme ends of the spectrum. A few of these causes are overvalved shim stacks, traditionally found in older flat track suspensions, say like 2016 or prior, compression and rebound clickers that are too close together in the adjustment band, rebound separator valves that haven't had bleed holes drilled in them, and seized rebound needles, typically from people over tightening the rebound clicker. This is more often found in shocks. Now let's get into thermal fade, which might be harder to diagnose. Thermal fade, or overheated oil, causes a damper to go soft. Visually, the bike drops in height, and the bike feels harsh and bucky, which combine to mimic traditional packing. To explain it from another angle, I'll put it this way. The oil overheats, causing it to thin, and then the bike loses hold up, which in turn lowers the effective ride height and lessens damping, in both compression and rebound. So to recap, the bike loses travel, then the compression and rebound events cycle excessively faster and in an uncontrolled manner from lack of damping ability caused by the thin fluid. This translates to a harsh packing feel. To combat thermal fade, we must first swallow our pride and then look at when was the last time we had our suspension serviced. Poor oil quality and friction are the leaders in causing thermal fade. And flat track suspensions, let's face it, they're rarely serviced unless they're leaking. I've had many flat track suspensions come through the shop with a decade or more passing between services. And it shows when you take the suspension apart. The fluid is thick as honey, gray with metallics, brown with rust and dirt, or thin as water. Slide bushings are excessively worn. Anodizing is worn to the base metal on the inside of the outer fork tubes, or on the rebound rod, or various places on the inner cartridges, as well as the shock body. Nitrogen bladders have gone bad. IFPs are worn or sticking, amongst a host of other things that cause thermal fade due to poor maintenance. All of these things are oil quality and friction-related thermal fade creators, and easily avoidable with proper maintenance. A couple of other more rare causes for thermal fade can be improperly machined droop or lowering spacers, which take up excessive oil volume. In this scenario, less oil equals faster heat buildup. An improper nitrogen charge, broken free pistons, an improperly balanced shim stack, and even bad linkage bearings. In my experience, diagnosing thermal fade is usually the result of visually seeing the bike ride low in the travel while oscillating excessively with little to no control. Or we work through the clicker protocols to combat packing and get no resolution to the rider or racer complaint that describes the packing characteristics. In closing, we should be aware that baseline setups, changes in track condition without changes in suspension adjustment, poor maintenance, and bad or broken components can all cause or contribute to the suspension packing, and a suspension and chassis attitude that gets worse over multiple laps. To avoid this scenario at the track, proper maintenance and close attention to setup and setup changes are key. I'm sure this answer is likely not the grand finish or big epiphany that you may have expected. You might even consider it a bit underwhelming. That's okay. Let me tell you why. There is no black magic or dark art to suspension tuning or building. Is it hard to do right? Yeah, definitely. Is it impossible to understand? No. The answers are there and always have been. But nobody has typically put the effort forth on a large scale to bridge the gap between builder and tuner and rider and racer. Until now. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Hey, if you want to see me overheat or pack a shock in real time and provide the before and after dyno graphs so you can see what it actually looks like, let me know in the comments. Also, if you have any other suspension topics that you want addressed, whether flat track, MX, woods, or any other discipline, drop your ideas in the comments or message me. If this topic and approach resonated, you can find many more topics addressed the same way in my book, Flat Track Tuning, Real World Suspension and Chassis Setup. Available now on Amazon, Spotify, and Kindle.